The air in the old, dusty museum hung heavy, thick with the scent of formaldehyde and forgotten things. It was well past midnight, and I, Alex, the new night watchman, was on my first solo shift at the Museum of Anomalies. They called it that for a reason, I supposed. Not filled with ancient artifacts or dinosaur bones, but with meticulously crafted, disturbingly lifelike, taxidermied, well, creatures. Things that shouldn't exist. Chimeras, mythical beasts, and specimens that look like they'd crawled out of a fever dream. The director, a peculiar man named Dr. Thorne, had assured me it was perfectly safe, just old exhibits needing a bit of dusting. But as I shuffled through the cavernous halls, my flashlight beam cutting through the oppressive darkness, a prickle of unease began to crawl up my spine. The exhibits were arranged in dimly lit dioramas. The first hall showcased the avian oddities. A griffin, its eagle head and lion body merged with unsettling grace, its glass eyes seeming to follow my every move. Next to it, a rock, its colossal wingspan casting an eerie shadow on the wall, feathers ruffled as if caught in a perpetual wind. Then came the terrestrial terrors. A manticore, its human-like face contorted in a silent snarl, scorpion tail poised. A basilisk, its scales shimmering with an unnatural sheen, a faint hiss seeming to emanate from its petrified jaws. Each one was a masterpiece of morbid artistry, so real, so present that it felt wrong. My own footsteps echoed unnervingly loud in the silence, each click of my shoes on the polished stone floor amplifying the sense of being utterly alone, yet constantly observed. I checked my watch. 1:17 a.m. Only a few more hours until dawn. I continued my rounds, my flashlight beam dancing over glass eyes and sculpted fur. The Hall of Aquatic Abominations was next. A kraken, its tentacles coiled menacingly, its beak-like mouth agape. A leviathan, its serpentine body impossibly long, filling an entire wall, its scales carved from what looked like polished obsidian. And then, in a darkened corner, an exhibit that made my breath catch. It was labeled simply the Unclassified. It depicted a creature that defied easy description. A quadruped with a reptilian body, covered in leathery skin, with a disturbingly humanoid torso and arms. Its head was disproportionately large, with wide, unblinking eyes that seemed to hold an ancient, vacant intelligence. What truly unnerved me were the hands. They were disturbingly human-like, with long, slender fingers ending in sharp black nails. As I stood there, mesmerized and repulsed, I could have sworn I heard a faint scuffling sound from behind the glass. I dismissed it as my imagination, the creaking of the old building settling. But then it happened again, louder this time. A distinct, soft scraping. My heart hammered against my ribs. I directed my flashlight beam towards the exhibit, but there was nothing. Just the motionless, perfectly rendered, unclassified creature. I told myself it was just the air conditioning, or perhaps a rat in the walls. But the sound was too close, too distinct. It sounded like claws on glass. I forced myself to move on, my hand trembling slightly as I clutched my flashlight. The next hall was the aerial specters. Harpies with their bird-like talons and cruel human faces. A phoenix, its plumage frozen in a blaze of impossible color. And then a periton, a creature with the body of a stag and the wings of a bird, its shadow on the wall forming an unmistakable human shape. The irony of it wasn't lost on me, a guardian of these silent, monstrous effigies, alone in the dead of night. It was in the Hall of Mythic Mammals that things truly began to escalate. A chimera, its lion's head roaring silently, its goat's head bleeding, its serpent's tail poised. A sphinx, its enigmatic gaze fixed on some unseen point. And then the hippogriff. Its eagle head was tilted as if listening. Its forelegs were planted firmly on the ground, but its hindquarters seemed to shift. I blinked, rubbing my eyes. No, it was just the play of shadows. It had to be. But the feeling of being watched intensified. It was a palpable pressure, a cold dread seeping into my bones. I heard it again, this time unmistakably from the direction of the unclassified exhibit. A soft, guttural clicking. It wasn't the sound of wood or metal. It was organic, primal. I spun around, my flashlight beam sweeping across the dimly lit hall. The unclassified exhibit was still there, its vacant eyes staring. But this time, something was different. The creature's right hand, the one with the long, slender fingers, was no longer resting by its side. It was raised, the fingers splayed, as if reaching. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. This wasn't possible. These were static displays, lifeless. Yet the hand, it looked as if it had just moved. I moved closer to the glass case, my flashlight beam unwavering. The click again, louder, followed by a faint rasping sound. It was coming from inside the exhibit. My mind raced, trying to find a rational explanation, a trick of the light, an illusion. But the sound was too real. Then I saw it. A flicker of movement behind the creature's unblinking eyes, a subtle twitch. My blood ran cold. I backed away slowly, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. I fumbled for my radio, my fingers clumsy and numb. "Control, this is Alex at the Museum of Anomalies. I think there's a problem." Static answered me. Of course, it was the dead of night. I heard another sound, this time from the Hall of Terrestrial Terrors. A low growl, deep and resonant, like stones grinding together. It wasn't a recorded sound. It was too raw, too alive. My flashlight beam swung wildly, catching glimpses of the manticore's snarling face, its scorpion tail twitching. Then, the basilisk's head seemed to slowly, impossibly turn towards me. Its glass eyes, moments before fixed and vacant, now gleamed with a faint malevolent light. Panic began to set in. I retreated, my eyes darting from one exhibit to another. Was it just me? Was the isolation getting to me? But the sounds, they were undeniable. And the movement. I stumbled back towards the entrance of the Hall of Aquatic Abominations. As I did, a shadow detached itself from the wall, not cast by my flashlight, but originating from the Kraken exhibit. A massive tentacle, thick as a tree trunk, began to uncoil, its suckers rippling with a disturbing fluidity. My heart leapt into my throat. I could hear the faint wet slap of rubber against stone. The glass case, designed to contain the impossible, was straining. I didn't wait to see more. I ran. I ran through the echoing halls, my footsteps a frantic drumbeat against the unnerving silence that had fallen. But the silence was short-lived. From behind me, I heard a cacophony of sounds, a roar, a hiss, a guttural shriek. The static growl of the basilisk intensified, the manticore's growl joined by a sound like flapping leather, the rock's wings stirring in their display. I burst into the Hall of Avian Oddities, hoping to find the emergency exit. As I did, the griffin's head snapped towards me. Its beak opened, not in a silent scream, but in a sharp, piercing cry that echoed through the museum. The rock's wings unfurled with a rustle of dried feathers, a gust of frigid air sweeping through the hall. The periton's shadow on the wall, the one that always formed a human shape, was no longer static. It was contorting, stretching, mimicking my panicked flight. I reached the main rotunda, my flashlight beam illuminating the vast domed ceiling. And then I saw it. Standing in the center of the rotunda, where no exhibit was supposed to be, was the unclassified creature. It was no longer behind glass. It was standing, its leathery skin seeming to ripple, its disproportionately large head slowly turning,
those vacant eyes now filled with a terrifying primal hunger. Its
human hands, the ones that had unnerved me earlier, were outstretched, its black nails glinting in the dim light. Behind it, in the doorways of the darkened halls, I could see them. Movement. Shadows detaching themselves from the dioramas. The griffin's silhouette, wings spread wide. The manticore, its scorpion tail raised. The kraken's tentacles snaking out from its exhibit. They were all moving. They were all alive. The air grew colder, thick with an unnatural static charge. The clicking sound, the one that had first drawn my attention, was all around me now. It was the sound of 1,000 tiny, unseen things skittering. The unclassified creature took a step towards me. It moved with an unnatural grace, a fluidity that defied its grotesque form. The glass eyes of the other exhibits seemed to burn with an unholy light, their forms shifting, reforming, becoming real. I stumbled backward, my hand finally finding the heavy oak door of the main entrance. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers numb with terror. A low growl vibrated through the floor. I risked a glance back. The unclassified creature was no longer in the rotunda. It was at the entrance to the hall, blocking my escape. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of sharp, needle-like teeth. A wet, guttural hiss escaped its throat. Then the sounds intensified. The flapping of wings, the scraping of claws, the unholy chorus of growls and roars. I could feel the very walls of the museum vibrating with their awakening. The meticulously crafted figures, the lifelike specimens, the impossible creatures. They were no longer mere exhibits. They were predators, unleashed from their sterile prisons. I wrenched the door open, the cold night air a blessed relief, but tainted with the putrid scent that now emanated from within. I scrambled out into the empty street, not daring to look back. Behind me, I heard the heavy thud of the oak door slamming shut, as if to contain the horror I had just witnessed. But the sounds, the chilling symphony of awakened monstrosities, they followed me, echoing in the darkness, a constant reminder of the night the exhibits at the Museum of Anomalies came to life. I never went back, and I still hear the clicking, sometimes in the dead of night, a phantom echo of the nightmares that lurk just beyond the veil of what we believe to be real. The museum stands there, silent and imposing, a monument to things that were never meant to be. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that whatever Dr. Thorne had created, it was far more than just a collection of lifelike models. It was a resurrection, and the nightmares were just beginning.